So open up to. You started? Okay, I'll send him the recording, no problem. Hashtag Shalosh. Let's start. Okay, Masachet Berachot Daf Mem He Amud Aleph. We learned previously, aside halacha here, that a person should not say Amen louder than the person who says the beracha. So too we learned when a person read the Torah, a person should not, the translator should not translate louder than the person who read the Torah. Nowadays we don't have anyway a translator, so this halacha is not applicable. I said beside Yemenite, they still have translators in some places, but beside that, this halacha is not so applicable. Let's move on. The Gemara says, Tanya Nami Hachi. You see where the small chaf is on the page. Tanya Nami Hachi, the Braita says the same thing. En HaMetargem, the person who translates, Rashai Lahagbiya Kolo Yoter Min HaKoreh. He's not allowed to raise his voice more than the person who make the beracha or read the Torah. Im Efshar LeMetargem Lahagbiya, if the Metargem cannot raise his voice. Okay, we ask the person to raise his voice, the person who's reading. Keneged HaKoreh, like the reader, Yema'ech HaKoreh Kolo Ve'ikra, so he should lower his voice and read. Meaning to say, imagine you have the person who read, his voice is not so loud, and the other person's voice is very loud, and you can match. So we ask the person who cannot, who could say it loud to say it lower, so the other person could match and does not say it louder than him. Okay, so we ask him to adjust the tone of voice so they could have a similar tone of voice. Fun fact, fun story, when the Ben Ish Chai used to give, Ben Ish Chai was not the rabbi of a shul, he was a rabbi of a town, no shul. Okay, only 2 times a year he gave a derasha, or 2 or 3 times a year, Shabbat Shuvah and Shabbat HaGadol, for the entire community of Baghdad. We're talking about 2,000-3,000 Jews used to gather to the main shul, and he would give one derasha for many, many hours, 4 or 5 hours. He would darshan. And for 2,000 people, there was no mic, no nothing on Shabbat. So he used to say it very loud. Then his son, when he passed away, his son Rav Yaakov Chaim, his son, took over, and then he was saying it, and only the first few row was able to hear. So they asked him, Rabbi, could you do like your father? Could you raise your voice? He said, Rabotai, it was not human. The fact that you have 2,000 people that are able to hear somebody, that was because the Shekhinah was talking out of his voice. I can't do it. Okay, it's the same thing. Moshe Rabbeinu, forget about Ben Ish Chai, talking to millions of people. That was supernatural powers that Hashem gave them to be able to teach. Moving on. Itbar. Shnayim she'achlu ka'achat. We spoke so far in the Mishnah about 3 people doing zimun, combining for zimun. We learned 2 pesukim. How do we know this? What about if you only have 2 people? What do we do then? Plige bar Rav ve Rabbi Yochanan. There's an argument between Rav and Rabbi Yochanan. Could 2 people say zimun or not? Chadamar, one says. Remember, Rav and Rabbi Yochanan were who? Students of Rav was a student of, please call this guy Mashiach. Rav was a student of Rabbi, and Rabbi Yochanan was a student of Shimon ben Yochai. Very many places they say Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. So, but anyway, the what do you call? These were the first generation. No. This generation was the first generation of Amoraim. Okay, so now they have a discussion. Rav and Rabbi Yochanan met the Tanaim, a student of Tanaim, and now they have an argument about can we do zimun with 2 or not. We don't know who says what. We just know that there was an argument between Rav and Rabbi Yochanan as far as can you make zimun with 2 people or not. So Chadamar one says, Im ratzu lezamen mezamnin. If they want to make zimun, they make zimun. The Chadamar im ratzu lezamen en mezamnin. And one say if they want to do zimun, they do not make zimun. Okay, the Mishnah taught us you need 3 people for zimun. Why? Because that's an obligation to do. You want 3 people? For an obligation, you need 3 people. What about 2 people? So one Amorah says, we don't know who yet. The Gemara will clarify who was the one who said what. But one of the two said, if two people are there, they are allowed to make zimun together. Okay. By the way, what you think zimun is? What do you think zimun is? Baruch Shachal Mishalon, and that's it. Call it a day. That for sure not. That's for sure not the real part of what the Gemara is talking about. That's just an add up. About the add up later on. The main part is Havlan v'Nivrech, but really there is a lot more to it. A lot more to it that you may not be aware. After you're going to learn these Rishonim, the Gemara with the Rishonim, you will see that, especially us Sephardim, we're super lenient with Zimun as far as what Zimun even mean. But you see, it's not Pashut Allah. There's many opinions. What is Zimun altogether? Is it benching together? What is it? Just tonight we're going to see Rashi, something that you may be surprised, you may not know. Let's see. So number one, we have an argument, can two people do Zimun or not? T'na'an, second wide line. Shlosha she'achlu ka'achat. Says the Gemara, look at the Mishnah, bring your proof. It says in the Mishnah, if three people ate at once, chayavin lezamen, they must make Zimun. What do you see from here? Shlosha in. Three people, yes, which means they make Zimun. Shnaim, lo. Two do not make Zimun. So the Mishnah is clearly against that opinion. That said that two people could make Zimun. The Gemara says, no, hatam there chova. The Mishnah is only dealing with obligation. Hatam, hacha, here, reshut, the argument is dealing with, am I allowed or am I not allowed? There's a difference between something that's you're obligated, is a must, and something that's what? Reshut. What does reshut means? If you want to recommend it, we recommend doing it. You're allowed to do it if you want or if you don't want. So basically, the Gemara is clearing up. Three, you have to do Zimun. There is no choice. Two, that's the argument. Are you allowed or you're not even allowed? But definitely not an obligation. Tashma. Come and listen to a proof. Quick time to mute himself. Tashma, come listen to a proof. Shlosha shachlu ke'echat. If three people eat at once, chayavim lezamen, they have to make zimun. Ve'en rashayin lechalek, and they are not allowed to split. This is also something that happens often. We're going to learn about it and the details and the exceptions. Ba'ezrat Hashem b'li neder. But three people come and they say, okay, I have to go. My wife is calling. I have to go. Right? Are you allowed to do that? Says the Gemara, no. And Hashem lechalek, you have to sit and do zimun. So what do you see here? Three people. Shlosha in. Three people. Shenaim lo. Two people don't have to. The Gemara, now what does that mean here? So what's the extra proof that we have from here? The extra proof is the following. 1 second. If I have three people and one has to leave, right? Many times I give classes and people I say this is Chilul Shabbat, you can't do it. What is the question people say? But Shalom Bayit, but Shalom Bayit. I say, okay, too bad, Shalom Bayit, but it's Chilul Shabbat, what do you want me to do? Sometimes, depending on who's your wife, it could be Pikuach Nefashot. But, what is Shalom Bayit? No, but Allah, you have three people that are doing Zimun. Now one really has to go. So if you tell me that even two people could potentially do Zimun, why are you bothering him? Let him go. Anyway, we have Zimun with two people. You understand? So that's the question of the Gemara. If you say you cannot make Zimun with two people, so that's why you can't split. Too bad. We need to make Zimun here. You can't go anywhere. But if you tell me that two people potentially could make Zimun, let the guy go. Let the guy free to go. That's the question of the Gemara. What? Shani Atam, and says the Gemara, no, there is different. The kabau le bechova. You know what? Because to begin with, they set it up as an obligation. Meikara from the very beginning. Which means, since we settle together, the near fight that we settle together obligate us to do Zimun. Not just any type of Zimun, an obligated, mandatory type of Zimun. We cannot get away from it. If you started as a mandatory type, you have to finish as a mandatory type. Why is that? Look at Rashi. Rashi, very interesting Rashi. Actually, I tell you from outside, we'll look at Rashi afterwards. There is a concept called Gadol, HaMetzuveh Ve'oseh, ממי שאינו מצווה ועושה. What does that mean? A person who's commanded to do a mitzvah and does that mitzvah has a much greater reward as somebody who does not have the obligation to do.
In Mavir?
No. Could you please open the door? What does that mean? You have let's say a lady and a man. So the man wants to learn Torah, and the lady wants to learn Torah. The lady's like this. She tells the husband, "You go work, so I could go learn." So the lady says, "You go work, so I could go." So who's it better, for the husband to learn or the woman to learn? Why? He has an obligation. That's one out of multiple different. You have two kids. You ask one of them to do something, and the other one jumps out. It's better for the one that you ask to do. Why? Because now he has an obligation to do it. גדול המצווה ועושה ממי שאינו עושה. You remember the Gemara Kiddushin, the filming people? Who was the famous rabbi? Rav Yosef, who was blind. Okay? So Rav Yosef was blind, so he was very involved to know, is he obligated in mitzvah or not, based on what? Based on this halakha? Mitzvah or no mitzvah? Is it greater? Is it not greater to be part of it or not? So now back to here. If you start as a chiyuv, as an obligation, so then it's better, not only is better, you are mandatory to follow the zimun in a mandatory fashion, which is a fashion with 3 people. So you cannot start with 3 and then drop to 2. You understand? So therefore we have no proof one way or another. Continues the Gemara. Another proof. Tashma, 3 lines from the bottom. Hashamash Shaya Meshamesh al Shnaim. You have a shamash that was serving 2 people. That was part of the Mishnah. Hareze ochel imahem. He's allowed to eat with them. Afal pi shelo natnu lereshut. Even though they did not give him permission. Generally speaking, there is a problem of gezel. Okay? Or gezel. Why? Because who's giving you permission to eat? Mechutzaf. Now we're saying, you know what? If you're there, you're serving your boss, you're allowed to eat with them. Why is that? Because we assume that your boss is happy to have zimun. Is ready to share some of his lunch, some of his dinner, in order to have zimun. He's happy to do it. So therefore, it's as if to say, Anan Sahade, we are there testifying that he's happy. Unless he tells you, don't eat it. If he tells you don't touch it, it's finished, it's over. But it's a lot. That's asking him why. Where are we? However, if we're serving 3 people, he's not allowed to eat with them. Why? Because without him, anyways, they have zimun. Unless they give him reshut permission. So what do you see from here? Same question as before. Why do I need you to combine? If we're 2 people, we say we give you permission to feed the 3rd one. For what reason? If you tell me that 2 people could do zimun, anyways allowed to do zimun, so why should I share my lunch with you? What am I gaining? Answer the question. 2 people could do zimun according to one opinion, either Rav or Rabbi Yochanan. So why should I not allow somebody else to take some of my lunch in order to do zimun? If anyway I'm allowed to do zimun with 2 people. Must be from this Mishnah you see that 2 people cannot do zimun. Answer the Gemara, no. Shani hatam, there is different. The nichaleu, the mikvaleu bechova. That it's better, they are happy, that it should be a mandatory obligation. As I mentioned before, doing something that is mandatory is a higher mitzvah than when you're not it's not mandatory. Therefore, these 2 people are ready to share of the lunch just to turn their zimun from optional to mandatory. You got it? Therefore, we don't have a proof, a way or another yet. Suspense. You ever saw zimun of 2? Let's see why. Let's continue. These halachot, also one of the halachot, I ate by a lot of people when I was young, and most of people don't know this halachot. Zimun with women. What's the obligation of zimun for women? Let's see. Tashma. Now that you're going to come out with the clear halakha after this Gemara, you're going to have to wait for Shulchan Aruch. But a couple of things you're going to learn anyway. Tashma, come listen to a proof. Nashim מזמנות לעצמן. Women are allowed to make zimun for themselves. Amongst themselves, 3 women go to the restaurant, they're allowed to make zimun. You ever seen a woman do zimun?
No.
Ever seen a woman benching? I'm just kidding. Yes. Okay, they don't know better. Va'avadim, what about servants? Same thing. Avadim v'ketanim. Va'avadim mezamnim la'atzman. So too, servants, we're talking about Eved Kenani, a non-Jewish servant that a person has. We're not talking the one that we have today, the Abla. We're talking about the one that a person actually owns, like Eved Kenani that they used to have back in the days. They are chayav, they are obligated in mitzvot like who, Mr. Tabakoli? What is it obligated in mitzvot like?
Lady.
Woman, ladies. So the same halacha as ladies. Okay, good. So far, we understood halacha. Nashim ve'avadim ve'ketanim. Women, servants, and children. Im ratzu lezamen enam mezamenin. If they wanna do zimun and combine with each other, they're not allowed to combine with each other, which means women are not allowed to combine with servants. What's the reason? Anyone knows? What? Although women are allowed to combine with men in a zimun, but not with servant. What's the reason? The reason is because servant, remember, it was a full-fledged goy that we went to war, that we acquired from war, and now it's our servant. So what do you think? The guy's going to change overnight and suddenly he's going to become a tzaddik? You're going to do brit milah, you're going to take him to the mikveh, now he's going to become tzaddik? No. A goy is what? Parutz ba'arayot. What does parutz ba'arayot means? What? He loves arayot, forbidden relationship. When I was in Switzerland, I had a French teacher. And one time he showed me, he used to go once a week, go back home once a week. We'll come to Switzerland, teach, and go back to France. And one time he shows me a picture of his daughter, and he's so excited. I was so excited. She's like, look, she looks like me. He was so excited that his daughter looks like him. So that's goyim perutzim ba'arayot. Avadim perutzim ba'arayot. Therefore, it's not a good idea to have women combining zimun with servants. Remember,
servants are female.
what if the servants are female? He's stalking me, I don't know. That's a good question. Never thought about that one. But the male one, they cannot. Why? Because of that idea. Not only that, even children. Why? Because perutzim, meaning you have a male child, is not allowed to combine together with a servant. Why is that? Same idea. Perutzim, even this type of arayot, a little kid, even this type of arayot, a person has to watch and stay away. Good? Also remember,
They shouldn't eat together.
that's the idea. We don't say zimun together, so in the first place, you're not going to start mingling together. Zimun, the idea is you start or finish together. So that means that we combine. Okay, zimun, as we're going to learn more and more, become more knowledgeable about zimun, is a combination. We don't want you to sit around the table with this type of people.
A Jew could bake bread with the Evan.
Bake or eat? Break. Oh, sounds like it. But it says Nashim and Avadim should not combine. Sounds like Eved with a man, that's fine. Because the man could stand up for himself anyway. And good, it's true that even a male goy, the Gemara already said that 2,000 years ago. A male goy is chashud even on mishkav zachur on homosexuality. Stam goy, a person has to be careful. Even stam goy, today, for sure, today know that, right? But even at the time of the Gemara already, 2,000 years ago, this was amongst it. A person has to be extremely careful. Anyway, Tashma, where are we? We didn't get to the proof yet. After the bracket. So what do you see? The 100 women are like 2 men. Okay, don't go back home and say that to your wife. This is a halachic statement. 100 women are equivalent to 2 men. What does that mean? Meaning, the Mishnah said earlier on, the 100 women do not have the obligation. They are allowed to make zimun, but they don't have the obligation to make zimun. So what do you see? That even 100 women are not equivalent to 3 men, because 3 men have the obligation to do zimun. So even 100 women is not even equivalent to 3. At most 2. Okay? Move on. Your father-in-law is here. Be careful. Vekatane nashim mezameno la'atzman. And what does it say? It said that women are allowed to do zimun for themselves. Avadim mezameno la'atzman. And servant could do zimun for themselves. So what do you see? That there is such a concept of doing an optional zimun. As much as when there's 3 men, they're mandatory. When there are 2 men, why not? Let's do zimun as well. Let it be optional. You see, there is such a concept of optional. But women, there is such a concept. The Gemara says no. Shani atam the ika deot. It is different there because there are numerous minds. There are different minds. And now here, minds. Okay. Now you're gonna understand better what's the whole concept of zimun here. It's good, Mr. Tarakole, Mr. They say when there's 10 Jews, how many different ideas are there? 11. You don't want to talk. Yeah? How should we do this? If you start asking people, you're going to have more ideas than people in the place, right? But that's a Kiddush Hashem. If we're all different, we all think different. But if we all come to the same conclusion, Hashem gave us the bread and we have to thank Him, that's a Kiddush Hashem, right? If all of us, with all our midot tovot, midot that are a different way of thinking, smart or less smart, we all came to the same conclusion, this is a real conclusion. This is a Kiddush Hashem. So that's what the Gemara says. By ladies, true, there's no obligation. And as you said before, 100 women are worth 2 men. But 100 women, that's how many opinions? 1,000 opinions. That's every woman has her own opinion. So therefore, even though on the mandatory side is like 2, there's no mandatory, but on the mind, the different type of minds that we have there that combine for zimun, then we understand why there is zimun. When there is only 2 people, it's not mandatory, and you don't have enough of different mind to be able to combine them for zimun. You understand the difference?
So it all comes down to machshava.
Yeah, could be. The pasuk says, we have a pasuk. Moshe Rabbeinu talks to the Jew. He said, "I say, answer back." Okay, so in order to answer back, it has to be substantial. First of all, what's the concept of amen? Let's talk about it for 1 minute. How many years have you been saying amen? For a long time. What does amen mean? I agree. I approve. What else? Okay. Very good. You said a lot of things. You covered it all. One is amen means emet. Yeah. You said pokeach ivrim. Hashem open up the eyes. You wake up in the morning. Hashem emet. I confirm your beracha. I verify that what you say. You know, after the advertisement, I am this Donkey Harris. I approve of this message. Right. So amen means I approve of this message. That's what amen means. Emet. Okay, so you say a statement, I say emet. Very good. What else? Anything else? Mechaye hametim. Hashem revives the dead. So that's a beracha in the future. Like in Persian, you would say inshallah. That's also amen. Let it be. Right? A person gives a beracha, you say amen. What's this amen? It's not emet. Right? You say, oh, may you be rich, may you be healthy, may you be this. You answer amen. What does amen mean? Let it be. Amen also comes from the word emunah. Emunah. Right? Emunah, which I have emunah, the trust that it will happen. Emet, either it will happen or let it happen. Okay? What else amen stands for? Anyone else? Kel melech ne'eman. Aleph mem nun. Kel melech ne'eman. Hashem is the king that's trustworthy, that everything will happen. Okay, so therefore, zimun is the same item. Nevarech. Let's combine and bless Hashem. Will approve of our benediction. Benediction, blessing of Hashem is all approved. So the more different minds we have, the more of an approval it is. Right? You understand? When you verify and you verify with all your different minds, that's a bigger Kiddush Hashem, and that's the concept of Zimun. Let's continue. The Gemara says, Ima Sefa, look at the end of that Mishnah, Nashim va'avadim, im ratu lezamen. Woman and servant, if they want to do Zimun together, and mezamnin, they're not allowed to do Zimun. Amailo, why not? V'hai kadeot, you have the concept of different minds. You have the Eved has his mind, okay? Pablo has his mind, and you have the lady, Sarah, she has her mind. So why can't they combine together? So when I answer, Shaniyatam mishum peritzuta, they're different because of peritzut. What's peritzut? We're afraid that they're going to come to commit adultery or something like this. Okay, a person has to be careful. Let's continue. Tistayem, says the Gemara, okay, we have an argument, unresolved argument about what? The halakha. Could two people say zimun or not? However, we didn't yet establish who said what. Who said what? Mr. Arjank, why is it so important to know who said what? What do I care?
Because who says louder and you have to say louder.
No. In the Gemara always wants to know who was the one who said that statement, who was the one who said that statement. Why is it important? حالا یکی گفته یه ربای 1000 سال پیش گفته. حالا چی؟ Who cares? This rabbi, this rabbi. What? What else?
You get an answer.
Because a lot of time when it's unresolved, we don't have a clear proof, Mr. Tawakoli, what do? We pass in with the name. Okay, the brand matters. We go with the brand name. Because there are certain chachamim that were bigger than others, and there is even rules. The certain chachamim, the halakha is always like that. Could be Rabbi Yochanan, which is one of the people that we're talking about here. Halakha is like him. So it's very important to, at least if we cannot figure out what the halakha is, figure out who said it. That way you will be able to figure out who the halakha like. You understand? So now we want to know who said what. What did Rav say? What did Rabbi Yochanan say? And that's what the Gemara is standing right now. Says the Gemara. Tistayem, let it be. It makes sense. The Rav de Amarim Ratzul Zamen en Mezamnin. That Rav is the one who said if they want to do Zimun, they are not allowed to do Zimun. How do I know that? The Amar Rav Dimi Bar Yosef, Rabbi Yosef, Amar Rav said in the name of Rav. Shlosha shachlu ke'achat. If 3 people ate together, ויצא אחד מהם לשוק, and one of them left to the shuk. I am busy, I'm leaving. Goodbye, ciao. What do we do? Got it? 3 people ate together, one of them is running, leaving. קוראים לו, we call him, ומזמנין עליו ומק זימון. As the Gemara will explain later on, and this is halakha and Shulchan Aruch. Generally, in order to say zimun, we sit around the table and we say zimun. In this exceptional case, we have 2 people that are sitting. The third one got up and left. He's allowed to say zimun from wherever he is, as long as we hear him. And I would say, clarify that later on. Okay, even let's say we hear 3 people eating, one of them is leaving and stepping out the door. Usually you can't use a person like that for zimun. But in this case, since we already have an obligation of zimun, and this guy mechutzaf, he's not supposed to do that, he's not supposed to leave, but he left. So we just let him know that we're going to start zimun, and he could answer zimun from behind the door, from outside. That's an exception, and that's halakha and Shulchan Aruch. Okay, so ta'ama de korin lo. You see, how we're able to do zimun is because we call him and we let him know that we're going to do that, and he answers from far. Hello, korin lo. You see, if we wouldn't have done that, we wouldn't have called the third one. Lo, the 2 are not allowed to do zimun, even though the third one left, and now we have no choice. Says the Gemara, now you can't bring a proof from here. Shanyatam, here's different, because to begin with, we ate as 3 people. So once to begin with, we establish it as mandatory, now we could no longer downgrade it to optional. Therefore, you don't have a proof from Rav. Again, Rav is not the one. We don't have a proof, at least, that he's the one who holds that 2 people could do zimun. So the Gemara says, you know what? The opposite. Ela tistayem ra, it makes sense. The Rabbi Yochanan hu de amar. Rabbi Yochanan was the one who said, Im ratzu lezamen en mezamnin. That if they want to do zimun, too bad they cannot do zimun. How do I know that? The Amar Rabba Barav Chana. Rabba Chana says, Amar Chana. Listen to this rule. This rule is extremely important and extremely controversial as how to explain it. You'll see. Shnaim she'achlu ke'echad. Two people are eating together. Echad mehem yoseh bebirkat chavero. One of them could be yotze, could fulfill his obligation with the beracha of his friend. Okay, there is a concept called Shomea Keone. You listen, it's as if you said it. Okay, we had that by what? By you go say Hallel. One person said Gomel. A little bit controversial, but mainly accepted. Yes, Shulchan Aruch says like you said. Yeah, correct. Many different halachot. You're gonna listen to the shofar. Who says the beracha? Rabbi Shuv, Kiddush, so on and so forth. We really have to talk about all these cases. There is what we call Birkat ha-mitzvot, beracha of a mitzvah, and then there is what we call Birkat ha-nehenin, correct. Birkat ha-nehenin, which means enjoyment. What enjoyment? Shahakol, hadama, mezonot. They have slightly different halachot because the nature are different. So they have slightly, as we go, we're going to see the difference in halakha between the two. So let's see here. The Gemara says one person shama. Where are we? Echad men yoseh bebirkat chavero. One of them could be Yosef fulfills beracha with the beracha of his friend. V'habinan be, and we ask a question on that statement of Rabbi Yochanan. Ma'e kamash malan, what are you coming to teach me? Remember, Rabbi Yochanan was an Amora. So wow, what are you coming to teach me? Tanina, whatever you said was already said in the Mishnah. Shama velo ana yatsa. Even if you hear and you did not repeat, you just heard the beracha. You good, yatsa. Lo ana doesn't mean not answering. Amen, it means not repeating. Yeah.
For the bracha, that's not enough.
This is even for beracha of hana.
But what's the idea of kevana?
That's the idea. You have to pay attention that you want to be Yotze. You have to pay attention and he has to pay attention. Both of us have to, in order to have Shomer. You know what? A funny one. Right now you're all listening. Right? So are you fulfilling the mitzvah of learning? What do you say, Mr. Aj? There's some people that love to talk in the class because they're very afraid that they're not fulfilling the mitzvah of learning. So they like to jump in the class. No, that's just a joke. Are you fulfilling? So according to Shulchan Aruch, there's an argument between Shulchan Aruch and the Gra. That probably it's an earlier argument than them, but it's known as an argument between Shulchan Aruch and Hagaon Vilna Gaon. Shulchan Aruch hold where's the argument in halakha of Birkat HaTorah. You wake up in the morning, okay? Suddenly, Mr. Mr. Mutadeh, you wake up in the morning, suddenly you have a Devar Torah that kicks in your head. You have a Devar Torah that kicks in your head. Are you allowed? You ever dream about Devar Torah? Did that ever happen to you? Many times. So now, in the morning, you don't want to forget it. You start thinking about your Devar Torah. Are you allowed to do that before Birkat HaTorah? Are you allowed
you're
or
thinking,
not?
you're not saying, you're thinking.
That's right. I'm asking a question. Are you allowed
Yeah,
to?
you're thinking. It's not physical.
What do you say?
It's all in the thought.
So you say, of course, yes. You say no.
Even in the bathroom.
Easy.
Some other though.
Easy. So
Why
everyone,
not working on taking it?
what?
Why not working on taking it?
Working?
But you said that.
Why
But
not
you said the
working
bracha
and-
Birkat Torah already.
Okay, so listen up, Rabotai. No, you didn't say Birkat.
No, but in that case, he's working. He already said.
Boy,
Birkat.
that was a joke. Now listen up to the answer. Shulchan Aruch says yes, you are allowed. Hagaon Mivina says you're not allowed. They have an argument about how to learn Higat Tabo Hagita bo yomam v'layla. The Gaon of Hagita means you got to be thinking, overthinking about it day and night. When I was in yeshiva, I had a Rebbe, unbelievable Rebbe. She lived till 120. His name was Platsky. He used to teach us for a whole year. He used to tell us, you see this guy, there was an Avrech there. He used to walk back and forth and talk to himself. In the middle of Seder, he will go from the beginning of the room and go back and talk to himself, and you see having a whole conversation with himself. So the Rebbe said, you see this guy, this is how you're supposed to learn. That's how why? Because you must be thinking. You have to think. Okay, most of people either click in their head or it doesn't click, right? If it doesn't click right away, you say, Rabbi, this is too hard for me. Sorry, this class is too hard. This is too hard. That's not how it works. Hagita bo yom v'layla means you gotta be thinking about it. One time I went to the train, I had to take the subway. I closed my eyes, I was learning Masechet Nedarim. I went to the whole Masechet back. I opened my eyes, 1 hour train ride, the train ride was over. It felt like a blink of an eye, literally. That's how Hagita bo yom said the Gaon, that's what it means. However, other Mefarsheh of the Tanakh say no, that's not what it means. It just means you have to spend your time and be learning day and night. It doesn't mean you have to think about it. So I have an argument, and by the way, this is an argument between Rashi and Ibn Ezra, all around Shas, all around Tanakh, Torah, Nevi'im, Ketuvim, how to translate these words. Hagita bo yom v'layla. So anyway, the Gaon says you're not allowed because that's considered learning. Shulchan Aruch says you're allowed. That's not necessarily considered learning. So now we have an argument. Are you allowed to think before Birkat HaTorah? So according to us, we're Sephardi here. So I'm talking, you're not talking. You're just thinking. You're trying to process what I'm saying. Are you fulfilling the halacha of learning Torah? What do you say? How? Shomea ke'oneh. And every second I have you in mind. That whenever I talk, it's as if you speak. Make sure you also have in mind. For Shomea ke'oneh, that when I speak, it's as if you speak. You got it? If you're Ashkenazi. So that's a problem. If you listen to a tape, according to Ashkenazim, you fulfill the Mishnah, the obligation. But Shulchan Aruch is more complicated because there is only thinking and there is no live person talking. The person has to be live while listening in order to be Shomea ke'oneh. Therefore, a recorded tape is more complicated. According to Shulchan Aruch, is more complicated. Are you really fulfilling the obligation of? It's a good sell now to have people come to class. Anyway, so let's move on to the next
Live
one.
videos.
Live stream.
There's another argument. Are you allowed to answer Amen? Okay, the same argument. Because when you're listening to that voice, this is really the voice of that person. Do we consider like the voice of that person or not? Most of the poskim say no. Rav Ovadia is more lenient, but most of the poskim hold that that's not. These are things that go up and down in the air and come back from the air. So it's not really your voice. There is an argument about it. Anyway, let's move on. We ask the question, what is Rabbi Yochanan coming to teach us? It's a Mishnah Meforeshet, a clear Mishnah. And so the Gemara, you know what? Amar Rabbi Zera answered, Lomar, to teach you she'en birkat hazimun benehem, that you cannot make a beracha of zimun between two people. Zimun has to be done between three people. That's what Rabbi Yochanan is coming to teach you. The only thing I could do for you is benching. I could bench for you and you listen and you will fulfill your obligation. But I cannot make zimun for you. And even that statement, we're going to learn properly in halakha what is the limitation of the fact that I could bench for you. When could you bench for another person? Go ahead.
What's the translation of
Rabbi Nabi, we ask, what is the question? And then we answer. The Gemara says, Tistayem. The Gemara says, you are correct. Let it be that Rabbi Yochanan is the one who said what? That two people cannot do zimun. Why is it super important to know that Rabbi Yochanan is the one who said you cannot do zimun? Anyone knows? Because in most of Shas, not all places, a few exceptions, most of Shas halakha is like Rabbi Yochanan. Even against Rav. Rav was a giant. It was Rosh Yeshiva. Rabbi Yochanan. Rav was a Rosh Yeshiva where? Close. Anyway, if Esfahani is Nesfeh Jaon, anyway, you have a... Yeah, but he was in Bavel, maybe. In Bavel. Where was Rabbi Yochanan the Rosh Yeshiva of? Eretz Yisrael. Which town? Tiberia is right. The last Sanhedrin was Rabbi Yochanan. It was in Tiberia. Look inside. Tistaya, and by the way, he's the one who wrote the Talmud Yerushalmi. He was in Tiberia, but he wrote Talmud Yerushalmi. Interesting that I called it Yerushalmi. Well, it was. Tistaya, Amar le Rava bar Ravuna le Ravuna. Rava bar Ravuna to Ravuna. Veha Rabbanan da'atu me'ma'arava amre. The rabbis that come from the west say, what does that mean, come from the west? As I was mentioning to you before, the two main cities, hubs, that's how it's called, the two hubs, were Bavel and Eretz Yisrael. These were the places where there was learning, there were Jews, Bavel, Eretz Yisrael. And often what would happen is that the rabbis would travel from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael to learn, to teach. I mentioned before, Rav, why did Rav go to outside of Eretz Yisrael, Mr. Setare? Why did you go outside of Eretz Yisrael? You're not supposed to leave Eretz Yisrael. He was a student of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. Once Rabbi passed away, he became the Rosh Yeshiva in Bavel. He went to Bavel. Why? To teach Torah, to give over the Torah that he learned, became Rosh Yeshiva. You know, today, if it wasn't for one specific rabbi, almost Sfardis would have no rabbis. You know who? I said Persian. I didn't say Persian. I said Sephardim in general. I didn't say Persian. I said Sepharadis. Rabbi Ezra Atiyah. You heard Rabbi Ezra Atiyah? He was a Rosh Yeshiva of Porat Yosef. He was a Rebbe of Rabbi Ovadia Yosef. Who else? Rabbi Ben Shona Bashaul. Who else? Rabbi Ben Chaim learned by Rabbi Ezra Atiyah. The one here. Eliyahu Ben Chaim was a student of course, Rabbi Ezra Atiyah. Who? You know, Panama's have a big community. Rabbi Moshe Halevi. Rabbi Moshe, right? You know the Syrians? They had the big Chacham called Rabbi Baruch Ben Chaim. Huge rabbi. He was a student of his. And you name it, all over the world, they were all graduate of Porat Yosef. So you see, there were certain people like this, they went out and he sent all the students out through the word. You're not allowed. My Rosh Yeshiva, I forgot, in Brooklyn, Rabbi Raful, he was a student of Chacham Ezatiyah. So how do you send people out of Eretz Yisrael? What's the answer? Marbitz Torah, you want to give out, there's a prohibition to leave Eretz Yisrael. But when you have to teach Torah, even to learn Torah, you're allowed to go. How much more to teach Torah? So that was Rav. Who was Rabbi Yochanan? Rabbi Yochanan stayed in Eretz Yisrael. So now the Gemara says, look, the people that came from the west. Who's the west? If you live in Bavel, on your left side you have Eretz Yisrael. So this were the people from the west. Amre, they used to say, Imratzu lezamen mezamnin. If they want to do zimun, they are allowed to do zimun. So who did the people from the west? The Israelis. Who was the rabbi? Rabbi Yochanan. And the Israelis are saying, if you want to make zimun, you're allowed to do zimun. Must be they learned it from Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan is the one who says that you're allowed to make zimun. So that contradicts what you said before. My love, is it not? The Shamalo Rabbi Yochanan, that they heard from Rabbi Yochanan. And say, no, the Shamiula Merav. Really, they heard it from Rav. Mekame de Nachit le Bavel. Before he went down to Bavel. Remember? That's why I gave you the whole story. I'm not a storyteller. I was telling you the whole story so you understand the Gemara. That Rav first was in Bavel. First was in Eretz Yisrael, then went to Bavel. So his student heard from him before he left. And that's why when people came from Israel, they said over the two people could do zimun, but really you can't. The halacha is like Rabbi Yochanan. And what did Rabbi Yochanan say? A person cannot do zimun. Two people cannot do zimun. But just fun fact, another fun fact that I read I believe in the Shem HaGedolim from the Chida, I believe. Maybe on the footnotes there, I forgot. Very fun fact. Rav was a student of who? Remind me? Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi. Who else? Who was his uncle? The uncle from both sides. Rabbi Chia. Rabbi Chia, who was a main student of Rabbi, was also the uncle of Rav on both sides. if you open the Zohar,
What does that mean on this?
well, that's a long story. You ask them. If you look at the Zohar constantly talk about Rav as a teacher. The Mekubalim says something very interesting. They say that although Rav was a student of Rabbi Yochanan and Rebbe in Peshat, in learning of Gemara Halachot, in Kabbalah, they were his students. In Kabbalah, Rebbe were his student, although he was way younger, much younger. And if you look at the entire Shas, he gave respect to them, not the opposite. But I read that somewhere that they were his student in Kabbalah. Anyway, we stop here for today.
Who was his uncle,
Chazal.
Rabbi?
Rav Chia was his
His
uncle.
great uncle, and then what? They married his niece or something?
No. Half